Today, I'm going to talk about the perils of using a smartphone to control diabetes devices. So, don't get me wrong, I think smartphones controlling devices is a wonderful thing. It's because my patients prefer it. They love the simplicity of it. They don't have to carry a second device with them. And it makes it easy to look at glucose levels because people always have their devices at hand. But the FDA recently issued an alert to patients because they had found that there were smartphone device alert settings that were erased. And this happened especially following phone hardware or software changes so that the phones no longer alerted for critical situations like too high a glucose level or too low a glucose level or all the other kinds of important alarms and alerts that patients get from their smartphone or should be getting from their smartphone. And so they suggest that patients check their alarms and alerts periodically just to be sure that they're working because you don't want to depend on something to alert you if it's not going to alert. I recently became aware of the concerns of using smartphones when I had a patient who ended up in jail. And the first thing they do when they put you in jail, or one of the first things, is to take away your smartphone. And this particular individual was on an Omnipod 5 system. So without the smartphone, they couldn't use their pump. They couldn't look at their glucose levels. And they were really lost. It was very disconcerting, the entire situation. But when you have type 1 diabetes, to not be able to manage it or even know what your glucose levels were really contributed to the trauma of this situation. I also have patients not in such a difficult situation, people who work in highly secured environments, people who are working in jobs like judges, where looking at a smartphone isn't really allowed or considered part of what their daily routine is. And so I know that there are people where smartphones aren't the answer, and having a separate kind of controller is actually preferred. But then this made me think even more about what happens when you travel with a device that's just running off your smartphone. What happens if you lose your smartphone or it breaks or is stolen? How then do you run your diabetes devices? Well, if you're in the US, that's not such a problem. But if you're abroad, it can be more of a problem because of the phenomena of geofencing. Now, I can't explain this all in great detail, and I am sure there are those of you out there who are much more savvy with these systems than I am. But I do know that a US phone doesn't run the apps that you can get, say, in Germany for controlling Dexcom or a insulin pump system, that they're specific to the country. And I think the apps are specific to a country, and possibly the phones are. I know you can do things like change SIM cards or change VPNs or do things to make things look like they're in the US, but this could be problematic, especially if you're not a computer science whiz like I'm not. This really highlights the need for people to be prepared to manage their diabetes without technology. And if it's, say, a longer trip, people might wanna bring a backup smartphone, so they always have something to fall back on. But I just think we need to think about it because it's a change in how people are managing their diabetes. It's a change to be using devices that only rely on a smartphone. And so, as always, when one has diabetes, it's good to think through all possibilities and then to prepare for them. This has been Dr. Ann Peters from Medscape. Thank you.